Recording in progress.
Is wrong. But why is it wrong? That's our question. And cannot find an answer as to why rape is wrong. Then we have criminal law, which was rape, which says that rape is a crime. And what would be the reason behind simply a matter of prejudice? Or can we give good reasons for our moral beliefs? All these are very important questions. It's the kind of question that I strongly encourage you to think. Morality. In Thai we translate morality as Sin Tham. And two words are from Pali, Sila and Dhamma. And we put them together and it becomes a Thai word, Sin Tham, meaning morality, what society believes to be right or wrong. So is this simply a matter of prejudice? Just, I want to believe that this is right, so it is right for me, no further argument needed. But do we want to leave the matter at that? I mean, that would be a very, very strange kind of society, and would be a violent one, because people will disagree very strongly about what they believe. So the area of philosophy which deals with such questions is usually known either as ethics as moral philosophy. So the two are more or less the same. So Warburton is going to use the terms interchangeably. So now we are looking at a set of questions that constitute the subject matter of ethics. And before this session, we had a little discussion outside of the classroom about Buddhism. And one of the questions raised, and I think you can join in because this can be a good discussion topic. The question is whether Buddhism is a philosophy or not. And perhaps a related question is the relation between Buddhism on the one hand and philosophy on the other. Well, to get the discussion going, let me bring back the topic of other religions, as I did last Saturday, when I talked about God. There is the question about God, whether God exists, right? We talked about this last week. Now, for philosophy, we want to know the truth, whether God exists or not. I mean, either God does exist or he does not. We cannot, Frank talks about this, seeming contradiction in his talk. But intuitively, without much philosophical underpinning, intuitively we don't believe that God can exist and not exist at the same time. So the truth must be one or the other. Either God exists or he does not. But question is how do we know, right? How do we know? And for those who are faithful, they could be Christians, they could be Muslims. They have faith in God. So for them, the question about God is the question of faith. They have faith in God. They believe that they very strongly believe that God exists because of various reasons for them. And it's beyond any debate. I mean, we can enter a debate with the faithful, but the end result for them is always, on the side of God. To tell you a story, I once had a debate with a Christian philosopher, a very a kind of person who doesn't want to change his mind for any reason, and he is going to, he wants to change other people's mind, for that matter. And we talked, and soon afterwards we talked about God. And he tried to convince me, because he knew I was a Buddhist, he tried to convince me that, the Buddhists believe that, God is of no importance. God is just another being in the cycle. Is wrong. God is the supreme being, the creator of all kinds of things and so on. And he presented an argument. Well, it's about right or wrong, but talking about God. But just to lead us to a kind of discussion, he gave me an analogy of a train. So you imagine a train. There are many cars in the train. The cars won't be able to move unless there is the engine in the front. In English, I think we call it the locomotive in the front that enables the train to move, right? The main engine of the train, which is usually in front, the first car in the whole chain, the train. So things in the world are like the train. We have things in the world that move, like winds are blowing, waterfall, flowing, rivers flowing, and so on and so on. So all these must be caused by something. And it is kind of unimaginable that the causes can go all the way to infinity. He told me, otherwise, we cannot make sense of the whole thing. But that's where we had our disagreement, and we spent like half an hour. Imagine, we were standing during a break in a conference, and we held a cup of coffee or juice together. We stood up. Other people left, but we continued to argue. He said it was not conceivable. There must be something that makes sense of it all. Otherwise, the train won't move. But we see that the train is moving, so there must be something that causes the whole train to move. And the train, of course, is the analogy to the world. So the engine is God, right? But I could not bring myself to believe that because what would be wrong to imagine? You can imagine. We don't have a whiteboard here with kind of a pen. So you can imagine an infinite train, infinitely many cars, right? And the whole thing is moving. Why not? Why is it impossible to believe? I mean, why is it an incoherent idea? According to my Christian philosopher. That's where our argument went to a kind of a. I don't want to see a dead end because we could continue talking and talking, but we each had to go back to the next session, so we stopped talking and arguing. So this illustrates the difference between philosophy on the one hand and religion on the other. In philosophy, we try to use reason. And the topic of our discussion in philosophy can be a topic in religion, such as God, right? In the seminary, where students are trained to be Christian priests, they engage in dialogues, in arguments like this. But the big difference is that they have kind of a, since they are in the seminary, they have this big belief, starting from the beginning, that God exists, because God is everywhere in the church, and in the classroom, and you can see, right? The same cross here and so on. All the imageries of Christianity is everywhere. So God is everywhere. So God is the premise, right? That's religion. So coming back to Buddhism. Well, Frank, perhaps you might want to join because. Yeah. In the southern states.
And I was for a few years a member of this because I wanted to introduce some other ideas from people like Valley Phillips. He's at the something in terms of prayer, which is out in the street. And I wanted to introduce ideas that John Nick, sometimes we come to a meeting. And one year, they just decided by fiat, someone just decided that now you cannot be a member of this organization if you do not declare your faith in Christianity. And at that point, we all exited who had alternative routes and now the open stuff. And as frustrated as you are, with people who are dogmatic, just cling to the dogma. Another thing I would mention was about the example of bravery is very powerful. And only though it's law, there is I think there's a couple of lines of thought going from that. And one is human rights. People have human rights.
Yes, certainly.
About what they want, but people take it for granted. So, and we have another group that doesn't such rights but responsibilities. We have responsibilities. And I remember a discussion where Asian philosophers and Western philosophers were the same thing. And it turned out that the Asian philosophers who emphasize responsibilities and the West
Lastly, yeah.
and emphasize rights.
The individual.
So that's a whole other development. And hopefully that's to the discussion of the question.
Yeah.
We can go one of these roads or another road, or we have to go somewhere with reason, so it makes sense. And the idea of the fundamentals of that you have to find God, otherwise you can't properly philosophize. That seems to be an interesting question. What definition of God are you talking about? There was God, fire,
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Which leads us to the topic that we were discussing earlier about Buddhism and philosophy. So I think we have an idea about what philosophy is about. We keep on arguing. No better way has been found yet to find the truth, except with arguments and reason. Has been this way for thousands of years. In Buddhism, I mean, when we were discussing, I would like to join in, and I said Buddhism is very wide. I mean, there are millions of Buddhists and a lot of schools, and Buddhism can be a big umbrella term. I mean, it covers many things within the purview of the term. What I mean is this. There is Buddhist philosophy, which is the use of philosophical methods, the kind of thing we are studying here in this program, to help us understand the teaching, the truth of the Buddha's teaching. For example, one of the most basic teaching of the Buddha is, of course, dukkha, suffering. And one of the number one of the Four Noble Truths is that there is dukkha. It's a kind of a claim, right? There is suffering. Number one, what does this sentence mean? And many Western philosophers have picked up on this claim, this statement, this noble truth number one. And they concluded that the Buddha was a kind of a pessimist. A pessimist is a kind of person who always thinks badly of everything. The sky is going to fall down. We're going to be in a bad shape. It looks at things in a very negative light, and they think that the Buddha is that kind of person. It takes a long time to get clear that the Buddha should not be understood, should not be regarded as such. So, number one is to try to get clear, and then the business of getting clear is the business of philosophy. So, this very basic teaching, there is suffering, can be a topic of a lengthy article, 1 hour or 2 hours of lecture, and so on. It can go from the individual mind. I suffer mentally inside. I have anxiety. I have doubt. I have fears, and so on. To the kind of suffering that many people are experiencing at the same time. Could be kind of a social suffering. The people in Thailand are suffering at this level right now because we have been in turmoil for more than a decade or two right now. And we can also look at cosmic suffering. It's a very deep kind of suffering. The world itself is part of suffering. And in order to understand this, it requires a lot of thinking and reasoning and trying to understand perhaps other points in the Buddha's teaching also, right? That's why philosophy is important, because this is the business of philosophy. This is what philosophy does, which is to get clear and to clarify difficult concepts in the teaching of the Buddha. So philosophy in this case is in service, you can say that, in service of the teaching. Another thing is what is happening when I debate with philosophers who are not Buddhist, like the thought I told you earlier. Another story, I sometimes travel to India, and every time I go to India, I meet Indian philosophers. As soon as they know that I'm a Buddhist, they pepper me with a lot of questions. They try to convince me that Buddhism is wrong. For example, the Buddha teaches that there is no self but who goes to heaven. That kind of thing, right? Who suffers the karma is a deep question, because it points to something very, very profound in Buddhism, in the thinking, in the teaching of the Buddha himself. If everything is momentarily, nothing stays from one moment to the other, then how do we make sense of substance and things that we understand to be of value? That kind of thing. So I try to answer their questions. But the point is, without a training in philosophy, you will find it very, very difficult to answer these kind of questions, especially when as a Buddhist philosopher, especially when you are challenged by philosophers who come from different traditions, right? That's why philosophy is so important, because it's not enough just to read the scripture. It's not enough just to memorize the scripture. You can memorize a whole books of scripture, but if you don't have the skill of explaining what the scripture or parts or one sentence of the scripture, if you don't have the skill of explaining through your own language what that part of the scripture actually means, then it will be very difficult for you to engage in a discussion, especially with philosophers from other traditions who are not going to take the Buddha's words just like that. Yeah.
When you were in India, that some of the Indian philosophers will tell you, oh, there's some actually don't know that Sankara has already defeated all the Buddhist ideas. And then you are sitting there.
Well, I would say that, wait a minute. Wait a minute. No, that's what the Shankara people say. But, we also find kind of points of argument against the position of Sankaras also. Especially, I don't remember the details, but basically it's the kind of questions and arguments that I said earlier. They try to find contradiction within the Buddhist thought. And one of the apparent, essentially, I don't think it's a contradiction, but it's an apparent contradiction. Anatta means no self. Just a simple question, just like I told you before. if there is no self, who goes to heaven? Nobody goes to heaven. Nobody goes to heaven. What do you mean nobody goes to heaven? It's the kind of a continuation of something. Can be either you or not you, or because to say either way it kind of presupposes some kind of existence which is denied in the first place. In order to be clear about this, we need to have a text like whatever Abhidhamma or Nagarjuna, and then we try to understand the text. But here is a kind of a pre-study, right? So we are looking at what is philosophy, what is the relation of philosophy and religion, and so on. But of course, if you are interested, you can continue studying, reading, thinking on your own, and then have I sent you my email or my mobile phone number? I think Chaiwat here can help you. But I'm part of the line group anyway, yes. So you can either send me a message in the group or to me individually. Either way is good. So I think I have made it at least a bit clearer as to what the relation between Buddhism and philosophy is. So there is Buddhism as a philosophy, like what we are talking about, and there is Buddhism as a practice. So those who prefer to practice, they don't want to debate so much. They want to sit still and to meditate. Nothing wrong with them. Maybe they get enlightened faster than we do. Because when we debate too much, maybe we won't we still live in the egg. We don't push ourselves out of the egg. That's a comparison, like those who are enlightened. Right? In Japanese, there's a word satori. In Zen Buddhism, satori. It means enlightenment. And the stories of the Zen students, Zen monks, they meditate facing the wall. That's the Zen tradition. They sit here and they look at the wall. And they're very strict. And then the master walks behind them, right? And the student is sitting here looking at the wall. And from time to time, the teacher, they use a big bunch of paper or something, hit very hard on the head or on the shoulder of the student. The student started. And they got satori, sudden enlightenment. No, just some story. So we come back to reading here. Here are some of the answers to the questions that we mentioned. And we are looking at what are known as the duty-based theories. An action is right in case it is our duty to do so. And where do we get the duty from? From divine command. So this is a kind of another version of what is known as the divine command theory, which is the easiest theory to understand in ethics, but nobody believes it anymore, unless you are fervent, faithful believer in God, and you are fearful of His command. Why is killing wrong? Because according to God's commandment, He commands people not to kill. Therefore, killing is wrong. That's duty-based theory. And Christian ethics, of course, is part of this theory. So, we can see here, there is a mention of the 10 Commandments. Many of the commandments are like the Buddhist precepts, like thou shalt not kill. But the idea behind the commandment and the precept is very different. Because the text of the Sila, I take upon myself as part of my practice, Sikkhapada, part of my practice, Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami. I take upon myself as part of my practice. It's not like God's commandment, thou shalt not kill, clearly. Period. Stop. It's my command. I have total power over you. I command you not to kill. So you shall not kill. Whereas the Buddhist precept, I am making a vow not to kill any sentient beings as part of my practice, because I believe that by practicing this way, I will get rid of suffering, eventually leading up to enlightenment. Right? Different. But here we are doing philosophy, and we are doing ethics, and the questions that we mentioned, that we have seen earlier, have been answered by the duty-based theories or by the divine command theory, as you know. Things are right because God commands them this way, and they are wrong because God commands people not to do them. Very, very clear. Then you see, philosophers are people who love to challenge others through a lot of questions. And there is a guy, and I let you read about this because we don't have too much time. There is a guy, Socrates. I have mentioned his name before, right? In case you don't know him before, he is a Greek philosopher, and he is Plato's teacher, and he lives in Athens, Greece, in the 4th century before Christ, so 2,400 some years ago. And according to Plato, because Socrates did not write anything, everything we know of Socrates came from Plato, and from another of his students, Xenophon, who did not write much, but we know about Socrates is through Plato, and one of the most famous dialogues, because Plato wrote dialogues. One of the most famous of them is a dialogue called the Euthyphro. And here you can see Warburton talking about the Euthyphro dilemma. You can find the whole dialogue easily on the internet. Just type Euthyphro, the spelling is there. And it's one of the clearest and easiest dialogues to understand. So I encourage you to have a look and to read the whole dialogue. The point is this. It's about the relation of God and His command, and what do we do, what is the nature of right action, of good action, and so on. The story goes like this. Euthyphro is one of the acquaintances of Socrates. They knew one another, and they happened to meet each other in court. And Euthyphro told Socrates that the reason he came to court was that he wanted to bring charge on his father, his own father. He wanted to charge his own father of, I think the legal term today would be manslaughter, because he negligently allowed one of his servants to die, which of course was against the law of Athens. And Euthyphro, being a son, but more than that, being a good citizen of Athens, he could not stay still, even though it was his own father. He came to court bringing charge, asking the police, or whatever people acting as the police in Athens, to arrest his own father and bring him to court to face justice of accidentally killing his servant. So that essentially was what Euthyphro told Socrates, the reason why he came to court. So that Socrates was kind of very interested, because as soon as he heard the word justice, his ear perked up. He asked Euthyphro, "Do you know what justice is?" Euthyphro said, "Oh, sure. Justice is whatever justice is what I am doing right now, even though the guy is my own father. But if he did something wrong, I will bring him to court. That is justice." And Socrates said, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not asking you what are you doing this time. I'm asking you what justice is. I'm not asking you the reason why you are in court today." You understand Socrates' question, right? I'm asking you what actually is justice in general. And Euthyphro said, "Justice is whatever is approved by the gods." In other words, the Athenians at that time, they were not Christians yet. We had to wait many centuries before they all became Christians. But before the Athenians, before the Greeks were Christians, they were polytheists. They believed in a kind of a polytheistic religion, much like the Hindus do right now. So they believed in a large number of gods, led by Zeus and his sister wife Hera, and all kinds of gods. And the idea is that if the gods, collectively speaking, agree that an action is good, approved, if the gods approve of an action, according to Euthyphro, that action is good. But according to Socrates, he still is not satisfied, because he asked a very, very important question, which is the kind of question that is still important today. Is an action a right action because the gods love it, or the God, or whether the gods love this action because it's right? It's bit tricky to understand, but yeah, you want to add anything? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right.
And so my pronunciation is American, so I would say you people. But you also studied in American philosophy. When you say you title, I don't know.
Perhaps you're right. YouTube Pro, right? YouTube Pro. Because in Thai language we call him Yuthai Pro, so I can yeah. Because there's a famous translation of this dialogue into Thai, and the translation says Yuthai Pro.
Discussion on this. I was asked to teach in an international Christian university
Yeah.
in introduction to philosophy.
Yeah.
I picked Plato to the Republic because I think it covers so many issues like this.
Yeah, right. And this is the kind of question that I would like you to ponder, to think about whenever you have free time. We wonder what makes an action good. Suppose there is God or the gods, and he has a lot of power. And suppose he decides action A is good and action B is bad. Is the truth like this? And according to Socrates, should not it be the other way around? The other way around is an action is good from the beginning. An action is good from the beginning. As a result, God commands it that people do this action. So is God's commandment kind of following from what, as Frank has said, is God's commandment following from the fact that this action is good in itself from the beginning? For example, compassion. I mean, I tend to talk too fast. Everybody agrees that compassion is good. But why is compassion good? Is it good because God made it so? Perhaps. Or is it good in itself? Good in itself. Meaning, in another world, another imagined world, where there is no God, a possible world. There are people in that world without God. And people, engage all kinds of activities with one another as they do here in this world. But in the world where there is no God, where people interact with one another, is compassion a good thing in that world? Yes, because compassion is always good, right? We are kind to others, we are always good, right? So even though there is no God, because from the beginning we imagined the world, that world, containing no God. So compassion is good, independently of whether there is God or not. That's Socrates' point. Right.
So you meant that the part of you that
Yeah.
is correct to its each kind of this philosophical point of view. The way that we are thinking about this one is good because of God, but because of this is the good and it is extra.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that we are taught this is good because of God is there about we believe that's one. Or maybe this is good and it is nature. That's what God says it is good.
Yeah. That's That's the you got it right. That's the question that Socrates put to Euthyphro. Now I change my pronunciation.
So if one of these are considered they have a life, we can see it because of not the nature by the God. So we have to look carefully about that. This is good because of not by the God, because it's good at its nature.
Right. So if compassion is good, it must be good, whether there is God or not.
Yes.
So we have to find another reason to explain why compassion is good.
Rather than reasoning with God.
Yeah, without talking about God. That's why we have ethics as a philosophy that we study. So we can go about talking and studying ethics without bringing God in the discussion.
So putting away from that, we have to think about another without.
Right. Unless you are a Christian philosopher, then you try to keep God inside. Yeah.
The reason I like the Republic is that it has very many definitions of justice.
Yeah.
And you would really get the exercise you bring by considering the defense of each of these
Mm-hmm.
going on through the dialogues.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be about the state, but raise things in the state of the Republic. But it applies to so much in life. I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Much you believe that.
Yeah.
That
Right. Yeah. So we can look at what Warburton has to say here. Maybe just kind of a recap on what we have been discussing. So according to Warburton, dilemma arises when there are only two possible alternatives and neither is desirable. This is what a dilemma means. You are forced to choose between two options, but neither option is good, but you are forced to choose it anyway. That's a dilemma. So in case you didn't know it before, so you know a new word, dilemma. In this case, the dilemma is one that was originally presented in Plato's Euthyphro. The dilemma for someone who believes that morality is derived from God's commands is as follows. Does God command or love what he or she does because it is morally good? Or does God's commanding or loving it make it morally good? Right? We have been talking about these two questions and we tend to believe the former one, right? God loves this action because it is good from the beginning. Consider the first option, if God commands or loves what he or she. So look at Warburton's language. He refers to God as he or she, so as if God could be a woman, right? If God commands or loves what he or she does, because it is morally good, then this makes morality in some sense independent of God, right? As Frank has said, he or she, namely God, is responding to pre-existing moral values that occur in the universe, and it is our job as philosophers, as philosophy students who are studying ethics, to find where those values are and how to find them. Discovering rather than creating them by fiat. Fiat means just creating out of the blue. On this view, it would be possible to describe morality completely without any mention of God, as we said, right? Though it might be thought that God provides us with more reliable information about morality than we would otherwise be able to glean from the world with our limited intellects, perhaps. But as I said, in the world where there is no God, there is a need for ethics anyway. There is a need to understand why compassion, for example, is generally considered a good thing. Right? Nevertheless, on this view, God is not the source of morality. The second option is less attractive, and as we say, God, everything depends on God. So, if God wants compassion to be good, He commands it to be good. End of story. Not very satisfactory, especially for us who study philosophy. So, another reason is that the divine command theory assumes God's existence. So, if you belong to a tradition that does not assume God, so you are in trouble. So, and then we don't have time for Kantian ethics, which is a kind of a difficult matter. And I believe there will be occasions within our program where we can study Kantian ethics and utilitarianism and other topics in ethics on its own, in its own course, right? Would be more appropriate that way. So this is just to help you read, because your job is to read. And then all of you have the fun, right? The video fun. This book. One of the easiest philosophical textbooks to understand, and one of the best. So strongly encourage you to read it. So time's up. 10 minutes after 2. 10 minutes after 3 o'clock. Give me a message. He is busy today. So Jan Sompong is busy, so he cannot come today. Yeah.
So we have all 2 sessions.
Yeah. So I'm here. So and if you want to discuss or talk, ask me any question, whatever.
If one officer is hired as a person, why do everybody look at
Well, this is free time, so lecture is over.
Yeah. Because I think one point about the right and wrong,
Yeah.
and they have the conversation with people and look at that.
Yeah.
So these are the 2 different things the way we understand that.
Yeah.
It's thinking about the right and wrong and the good and bad, because these are similar things for sometimes.
Yeah, people have their own ideas. I mean, everybody does about right and wrong. My favorite example is this. You walk along a street and you find a wallet lying on the street in front of you like this. And you pick it up and you find a lot of cash inside. Nobody is around. I mean, nobody is watching you. So you think by yourself, should I take some cash, because always good. But as a monk, you're not allowed. But as a lay person, because as a monk, it's more serious, right? You cannot do it. But as a lay person, nobody is watching. So if I take something out of the wallet, nobody knows. And then after I take the cash, I can take the wallet to the security people and telling them, I found the wallet. Right. Yeah, we are discussing. I said lecture is over. And I'm talking of one of my favorite examples when they teach ethics. I found a wallet lying on the street. Nobody's watching. There's some cash inside. Should I take some cash and bring the wallet to the security guard, telling them that I found the wallet? Please make an announcement looking for an owner. And then the question, am I doing the right thing or not? Most people would answer no, because I'm taking what is not mine. I'm taking something that is not yours. Always, maybe, I don't know whether there are any exceptions, but usually always wrong. Wrong. Because the person who accidentally lost the wallet, maybe they needed the cash a lot. Maybe they need the cash for some medicine for their parents. Their mother is falling sick and they need the medicine. So without the cash, a lot of suffering for the mother. So who knows, right? So we have, I think almost universally, because you asked about why do we know whether something is right or wrong, right? In this case, I think we agree that taking the cash out of the wallet is wrong. And then another question, why is it wrong? One answer is that it's wrong because the cash might be something that the owner needs it for their mother who is sick. Whereas if I take the cash, if somebody takes the cash, maybe they spend it on something useless, like buying a beer, something like that, instead of a medicine for the mother. And this is too difficult. Just leave this the question from Zoom is too difficult.
That is not the question which relates to our study today. Because
it's not about right or wrong. This is But no, leave it like that. Perhaps if we have enough time.
We're not talking about the existence.
Not now. We come to this question later for sure. But in other cases, there are actions where people disagree a lot whether it's right or wrong. For example, well, I have worked with medical doctors, and sometimes they ask me to help them think, help them decide, because there are patients who suffer from cancer and they cannot be cured. Cancer is too much. They cannot be cured. So they are going to die, to tell you the truth. They are going to die in 3 or 6 months. So what should the doctor do in that situation? There are two main options. To continue to fight the cancer, giving all the drugs. According to this option, the patient will suffer a lot because the drugs have a lot of side effects. And the cancer, when people have cancer and the cancer is spreading to other all the parts of the body, the cancer will bring a lot of pain to all parts of the body, or impossible to imagine what kind of pain. Because for us, a needle prick on the finger, a lot of pain.
Yeah.
But now imagine like 1,000, 2,000 needles throughout your body, something like that. So that's first option. Option 2 is to stop fighting and recognize that the patient is going to die anyway. So instead of fighting the disease, we're talking about the situation where people disagree whether this action is right or wrong. And there are a lot of debates, like, what people are debating in ethics about end-stage cancer, whether to continue to fight the disease or whether to accept the inevitable truth and find the best way for the patient to live the remaining part of her life, whether 3 or 6 months, in the best, most comfortable way possible. So some people disagree with the second option, even though I think most people are becoming to realize that the second option is in the best interest of the patient. But they believe that the job of the doctor is to fight the disease. Who knows, in 3 or 6 months, there a miracle cure for cancer coming out of the blue, who knows? And the patient can live. And then, might even be cured from the disease. In this case, we don't need to talk about euthanasia, because euthanasia means nowadays philosophers, doctors agree that what euthanasia means is intentional ending of life of the patient.
Okay, I will join you in the dialogue. Since we've each had an hour,
Yeah.
you've got enough, there's an hour.
Yeah, we can continue. You can join the discussion. Yeah.
I don't say anything more. I finished QUİC 3, only half of which was done last week. That's done. So the next class, I'll do what I intended to do today. I have Buddhist television study.
Yeah. Because he asked, how do we know, and how do I know, what is my own position on things, right or wrong? And,
Recording stopped.
and I'm telling, a story about medical ethics. A story in medical ethics where there is always a question of how to treat end-stage patient with end-stage cancer, whose prognosis is like a few months to live.
And you're bringing up the Hippocratic Oath, the idea of the physician's keep the money alive.
Yeah.
A very interesting thing, because there are cases where a patient might want to die. So
Right.
then you get into the discussion, versatility, so-called, curing the skin from letting die.
Yeah.
Many complex issues involved.
Yeah. You find a lot of questions like this in real life, and sometimes Buddhist monks, like you, are invited to join, and you are invited to talk to dying patients. Yeah.
I was in a situation like that once, it was very emotionally powerful. People in the Philadelphia Buddhist Association were invited to come to the bedside of one
think it's usually good, especially when the patient himself is Buddhist, so he listens to the chant, his mind becomes peaceful, and it's always good when you are dying that your mind is peaceful.
Recording in progress.
Because it's the quality of your mind. I think you know this teaching. It's the quality of your mind at the moment of your death that decides the future prospect, the future path. So if you die, when you are really angry, it's very bad. Very bad.
That's important to understand Marana.
Yeah.
The last moment for which happens.
Yeah. It's like you are entering a portal, a door to another world. So your quality of mind at that very moment decides which kind of world. Yeah.
This take a lot of care of this to put the area here in the state and the meaning of Marno. They pay special attention to that. I've seen an anthropology film, not like those, but the anthropology film is very instructive, that the family friends would circle around the person who was going to die and support them.
Yeah.
And give them good ideas.
Yeah.
Not cling on to the world.
Yeah.
To
To let go of everything.
and not
Most important.
have peace with that.
Yeah. So the Buddha teaches us to think of death often. Like every hour.
That's why we see the one son in the Buddha lifetime. Why we find his son died in the river. And then Mani before the Dhamma here before Vajrayana
Oh, that's the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. Yeah.
So everything is perfect before we go.
Yeah.
So this is not the one we have and to happily let it happen, let it go.
Yeah.
If you're attached on that moment, that you will get it back up on you. Look at this time, look at this time. Much, as we mentioned.
Yeah. Should always be mindful.
Yeah.
Don't be negligent.
Yeah.
Appama.
It's not only one aspect, it's awareness.
Yeah.
One of the people in our group was firmly fixed in the Mahayana tradition, and when one of her relatives died, she had the experience of calling the bodhisattvas to come and be in the room with us.
Yeah.
She had this experience, and she could see that her other relative could see that she died. But I don't know, I didn't see it. But
See
it
even
was
see the Bodhisattva. Yeah.
she was trying to follow the bodhisattva.
Yeah.
And so when her mother was dying, and the most meaningful thing she could think of was to do it in the cave.
Right. Yeah, because one of the meditation techniques is to visualize the Bodhisattva. So you imagine Kuan Yin, Avalokiteshvara to be in front of you. You keep that picture. Keep. Yeah.
So we have been by yourself before the time.
Yeah.
In the going to the Mahayana.
Yeah.
Even some from going to the Mahayana. But I would they have always some kind of situation which yeah, or
what do you think? Yeah.
When we have a start, one way people who are international, having them before time, there's only that 2 minutes people before going to the war, something like that. So those times they invited to some monk into this house and delivering some kind of sermon. The Buddha teaching the way we can understand that analyze for 50. And also that situation happening in the VAJRAYANA or MAHAYANA. Whether we have it that kind of situation or not.
So what is the question again?
The question is the way we did
The way we. Yeah.
So we give some dharma to that.
Oh, I think it's both.
Right.
In Thailand we do it too. And like in hospitals, sometimes the doctors invite monks from nearby temples to visit the temple. Please, venerable, this patient is dying, so please chant to them. Yeah.
Just them to say that it's over.
Yeah.
I think for my own teaching, when I speak today, I just want to target you. I want to live in
Oh,
I don't want to be
other
gathering around.
people have different ideas.
So,
Yeah.
but for the patient who thinks alone, if he will be really grateful for such a challenge, very transform for him, and if he will be really appreciate for our action for him.
Yeah.
But we have to definitely understand because we are not saying the background or some or the people which are not the Buddhism, like Krishna, and also Islam. There's such a kind of wisdom people, they really strictful, I think the very, very, very dangerous situation for them. You need to find it. We don't want to end it. We want to all peaceful life. But for our traditional Buddhism, we want to give a sense of to those people. So when we really take to another big wall or think about war, we cannot sit it.
Yeah.
Well, if Buddhism made a time for one practice or about meditation and spiritual care, or to say something or because I have one experience when I go to the hospital, such as that kind of situation we have in meditation. He said, but it is possible just be quiet, not having anything, just sit beside me, and then I want to go.
Oh.
And start.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe he just wants to see the monk's robe.
Yeah.
And then it's good. Yeah.
Rather than listen to any side for
Yeah.
our system. Because it is really annoying for me at the moment. I feel I thought it's really telling for some time to do. So therefore I have a intention and discussion this topic too. The one who always do this one is what the benefit or not. Because we have to ask the patient directly whether you like to listen or you want to speak the word.
Yeah.
Or just hear the word. And we have to see the carefully in the situation. Not have to go there.
You want to say anything? I haven't seen you before.
With the gap for time.
Yeah.
But it's actually,
You are in
it's,
oh, in this book. Yeah.
I want to try to that.
Where are you from? Where are you from? You're from India? From Bhutan. Yeah. Nice to have you here.
Where did you see my
Recording stopped.
of
very,
states
very
that
diligent.
Thomas
Yeah.
Merton. So she was truly interreligious. And she died in a small farming community. And people around, they didn't know what to do. They really don't know how to do the service because she wouldn't appreciate it if a priest held the So there were some of the relatives called me because they knew I was studying religion.
Yeah.
So I was asked to do a sermon. I mean, in her language, they could only think of it as a sermon.
Yeah. Yeah.
They could only think of it in Christian terms. I knew my mother would hate that if she were alive. So I have a series of fragments from different religions and read them at her wake. I think if she were alive, she would really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Rather than
Yeah.
trying
I'm
to
sure.
for ideas and just
Yeah.
interreligious thinking is many places.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Because I studied at Indiana University in the U.S. and it's one of the most conservative states in the U.S. where there's a hotbed of the KKK near where my campus is. Yeah. But now I think they died down, but still very conservative people who hold on to the conservative American values, like self-make yourself and so on. But the university, on the other hand, is kind of a liberal island where all kinds of people are there, and they are free to express their views. So, yeah, I don't know how it is now because I've not been back there for a long time. But your story kind of reminds me what is happening there.
Yes, a few months friends turned out in Pennsylvania and also in the states in Alabama. I dimly recall the news about this, but not detail. The way they put a hold on these people and their lynching activities to frighten everyone was to attack their money supply. So at one point, the KKK was broke, financially broke, so their activities pretty much stopped. But I don't know what's been happening in the last 20 years, whether they've done so.
I think the activity died down. I haven't heard of them for a long time. But when I was a student there in the 1980s, people were still talking about, Martinsville, Indiana is a few miles from Bloomington, where the university is. And I have heard stories that Martinsville is a center of the KKK activities in Indiana.
In Westchester, we had incidents. One of my master's students was chased around campus at night from the library doors at midnight by 5 white guys with baseball bats. And some of these people were energized by a nearby chapter of the KKK. Then the KKK decided they were going to do an informational event in the city, which had a black theater. And so they were very clever. He informed everyone
we don't have this kind of situation in Thailand because we tend to live more or less peacefully with people after religion so far. But there have been stories about protests against the Muslims here and there, but not as much as has not turned to violence.
I had a couple of Muslim friends in my life, but they were not normal.
The Muslims are intellectual. They are different. Yeah.
So we can compare with those the Muslims with outside of country, whether my country, Myanmar, and Thailand, for example. But I think for the religion, we should know about the religion after 30 years of religion or after high school. Before we are not knowing too much about general knowledge, that we put our religion faith, that we become going to traditional or the law of society. That was one thing about. So now, my country, this is one of the biggest challenges for the children for my country.
Yeah.
Because rather than we send the children to the government school, we get them to the religious school. So the children only who have grew up only one year, they have only one year for this kind of content. So in that state, we have facing the some challenges after we have discussed with the Muslim group or Buddhism group or Christian group, do not know nothing to know about it. So I think in that way, we should send all the children to the primary school before they take the entrance. And after they know everything about the general knowledge, which we must know from the society, and then let them choose by their own.
Yeah.
I think so.
One of my friends, Aslam Sierra, in Pennsylvania, South Asia seminar, where he challenged Brian Spooner, the Oxford trained Arabist, and defeated him on a point of Arabic language. And after that, I thought, very extraordinary work about you. And it took a while to make friendship, but after he opened up to me, I really learned something. And I can hardly tell you, the Muslims in Afghanistan had put a fatwa on him, his family,
Oh.
and had told his family, you have to split up, or we will kill you all. They were
Yeah,
trying
that's
to
terrible.
demoralize this
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
who was a journalist and a journalist scholar, and had published articles about actual events, which they didn't want published. So what happened to him is he had to be always on the move for the first several years. He stayed at Penn for 6 months, then he went to the Free University of Berlin for 6 months. Nobody would give him tenure or a permanent job, except after about 4 years, Free University of Berlin gave him a permanent position, and I didn't see him after that. His wife went to Paris to work for the United Nations. His son went to Boston College. They split up everyone they learned
Oh.
of him. That's basically the way to kill a man while he's still alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So, as I understood it, that was his faith. I really felt he was quite a humane guy. He may be a Muslim, but he's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of Muslim friends. They are okay if they are not like what is portrayed by the media. Maybe it's because they are like myself, like university professors. So they're different.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Because when they eat, they tend to eat like normal people do. Just don't mention that this contains false. Don't say that. They're fine. They'll be fine.
So learned again for studies, but you have to move around a lot just to do enough. You just come into London and back, just like you do your job. So it's interesting how people handle difference. When I'm somewhere where I'm different, they get together with other people who are like me, even if they don't look like me. We're different from the majority. That is a kind of fun.
I think the more people find others who are different from them, the better they'll be able to adapt and to learn, to go across one kind of limited horizon, so to speak. In Thailand, we don't have much of that because people tend to be the same. Not much opportunity to find foreigners unless you go to the tourist area, but there is a different atmosphere. It's not like here where we are from different countries. Yeah.
About the situation in Edinburgh, Edinburgh University
In Scotland, Indiana University.
I haven't spent any time there, but I think that it's pretty conservative. So coming as a Thai person to Indiana, how do
It's a big change. Yeah.
you get together with people?
Well, at the university it's quite okay because they have tried to make it as inclusive as possible. So I didn't find much difficulty living there, adjusting myself. And there was a Thai community of students who were supportive of one another. So we get together from time to time. We cook Thai food. And sometimes we engage in common activities like the university sometimes organizes kind of international students festival, and the Thai students group show Thai dance to other students from other countries. So it was good. But outside of Bloomington, it's all cornfield and small communities and people who don't know much about the outside world. So that was 40 years ago when I was a student. I think things may have changed. But still, if you look at the whole demographics of the U.S., Indiana is still the more conservative, generally speaking, especially when you compare with the coastal states, California, New York. It's the middle part of the Midwest. So you see the point. No, he's from Laos, she's from Cambodia, she's from Bhutan. Bhutan. Bhutan, he's from Burma, Myanmar.
But actually, the translation in Burma is not
Really?
Yeah, because the way we boundaries. It's the origin. But Myanmar is the way the military stays.
Oh, so you prefer Burma? Good, good, good.
Once you want to stay in Myanmar,
Yeah.
the whole country.
I see.
The boundaries is the one who is belongs to the administration.
Yeah.
Like a Thailand,
Yeah.
more.
Also, Burma is the people who speak Burmese language,
Yeah.
not like Shan people.
Not like.
Yeah, or Mon people. Yeah.
So when we want to be based on the diversity to be towards the end of the Myanmar.
Yeah. Yeah, I see.
Yes. Can I help you?
One of my ancestors is Mon,
Yes.
and there are a lot of Mon people in Thailand.
Yes, sir.
And my mother told me one of her ancestors is Mon, so I have Mon blood. And my father's side, he's Chinese, Chinese ancestry.
Yes.
So my father's side is more Chinese, so I'm mixed. So Thai, more Burmese, and no, Burmese, Chinese. Yeah.
When I came to Westchester, I was a new hire and hired to teach East Asia in the spring and South Asia philosophy center, which is in the fall. And they didn't have anything like before. So when it came to student groups, it was much more than there was a Chinese association, Indian association, but they couldn't get advisors easily. They would come to faculty and ask them, nobody interested, nobody knows anything about human beings.
Yeah.
So they asked me, I think it was first the Asian American Association. I said yes. And then the Japanese anime club, they couldn't find any advisors either. I said yes to that. And then there was a Korean club. So finally I was known as the Asian man. It's just I was teaching it and I was taking care of the students that I took care of.
Yes.
So that was very, very interesting because I got to observe the events of the aquatic events and learn, for example, near the university there were mushroom fields, and there had been people from Vietnam ancestry going there to work in the mushroom fields. And of course they have children, and when the children grow up, they come to university. So they come to us. They don't know any Vietnamese language at all. And their parents were discouraging them from speaking it, except that way. And they never encouraged them to study about Asia. And the only teacher they had for that. And some conversations were really illuminating about the way they think. We have this kind of Chinese winter. And everybody took turns talking about what they wanted to do after the university. And there was one quite beautiful Vietnamese woman. And when it came to her turn, she said, I just want to be white. And
To be white?
you could hear a pin drop.
Oh.
I mean, everybody
Yeah.
was thinking in her
It's a
thought,
sensitive
but
thing.
dared
Yeah.
not to say it. I just want to be white. Meaning, I want to assimilate into the culture. I want to get a job. I don't want to stand out. I just want to be me. And the me she wanted to be was not what the face looked like. So people really challenged by identity.
Yeah.
So I started using books because my students said, oh, I studied your Indian philosophy, I studied Eastern philosophy. But at one point, several of them said, I can't talk to Asian people. So we went
almost 4 o'clock. So we meet again next Saturday. Yeah. And enjoy the trip. So we should have something like this more. To talk. So, yeah.
After we are going to be a session that there will be some topic which we can always discuss. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. I think we can call it off.
Obviously, so that was that.
And we leave this for later sessions. Did God create us? Or did we create God?
He's not absent. He joined online. Okay, see you next week, everyone.